The rain fell in relentless sheets against the towering glass windows of Marcus Holloway's penthouse office, each drop a reminder of the storm raging outside. But nothing could have prepared him for the storm that was about to walk through his door. Marcus sat behind his mahogany desk, reviewing quarterly reports that would bore most people to tears. At 42, he'd built an empire from nothing. Holloway Industries was now worth over $3 billion. He'd clawed his way up from a childhood spent in foster homes, learning early that trust was a luxury and emotions were weaknesses. His success had cost him relationships, friendships, and whatever remained of his ability to connect with other human beings. He told himself it was worth it. Every single time. The knock came at exactly 9:47 p.m. Marcus frowned. His assistant had left hours ago, and security knew better than to let anyone up without clearance. The knock came again, more urgent this time, almost desperate. With an irritated sigh, he strode across the marble floor and yanked open the door, ready to unleash his frustration on whoever dared interrupt his evening. A little girl stood in the hallway, soaked to the bone. She couldn't have been more than 7 years old, her dark hair plastered to her face, her pink jacket torn at the sleeve. Her sneakers squeaked against the floor, leaving small puddles. But it was her eyes that stopped Marcus cold, red-rimmed, filled with tears, yet burning with a determination that seemed impossible for someone so small. "Please," she gasped, her voice breaking. "They hurt my mom. She's dying. Please, you have to help us." Marcus stood frozen, his prepared speech about security protocols dying in his throat. The girl swayed on her feet, and he instinctively reached out to steady her, his hand on her thin shoulder. She was shaking. Whether from cold or fear or both, he couldn't tell. "How did you get up here?" he managed to ask, his voice rougher than intended. "I followed someone in," she said quickly, her words tumbling over each other. "I saw your picture in the newspaper. They said you were the richest man in the city. I thought maybe you could help. The hospital won't see my mom without insurance, and the clinic closed, and I didn't know where else to go." Something twisted in Marcus's chest, an unfamiliar sensation he couldn't quite name. He should call security, let them handle this. It wasn't his problem. But those eyes, desperate, pleading, refusing to give up, held him captive. "Where's your mother now?" he heard himself ask. "In the alley. Behind this building." She collapsed. "I tried to get her up, but she's too heavy, and she keeps saying she's sorry, that everything will be okay, but it won't be okay because she's dying and I can't." The girl's voice cracked completely, tears streaming down her face. Marcus didn't remember making the decision. One moment he was standing in his doorway, and the next he was grabbing his phone, calling his driver, pulling his coat from the closet. "Show me," he said. They took the private elevator down. The girl, Emma, she told him, explaining in fragmented sentences. Her mother, Caroline, was a single parent who'd been working 2 jobs to keep them afloat. A week ago, some men had come to their apartment demanding money her mother didn't have. There'd been an argument. They'd pushed Caroline down the stairs. She'd seemed okay at first, just bruised. But today, the pain had become unbearable, and she'd collapsed on their way to the free clinic. She kept saying we just had to make it until Friday, when she gets paid, Emma whispered. But she couldn't walk anymore. The alley was dark, illuminated only by the distant glow of street lights. Marcus's driver pulled up, and in the headlights, he saw her, a woman in her early 30s, crumpled against the wet brick wall, her face ashen, breathing shallow. An old blanket, probably Emma's, was tucked around her shoulders. "Caroline." Marcus knelt beside her, and her eyes fluttered open. "Emma," she whispered. "Baby, what did you do?" "I got help, Mama. I promised I'd get help." Caroline's gaze shifted to Marcus, and recognition flickered across her face. You're him. The billionaire." She tried to laugh, but it came out as a pained gasp. "Emma, sweetheart, we can't bother this man. We'll be fine." "You're not fine," Marcus said flatly. "You need a hospital, now." He pulled out his phone, calling his personal physician, Dr. Sarah Chen, who'd been on retainer for years. "Sarah, I need you at Mount Sinai in 15 minutes. Private suite. Bill everything to me personally." "Sir, I can't." Caroline tried to protest, but Marcus was already motioning to his driver, carefully lifting her with unexpected gentleness. You can argue with me later, he said. Right now, you're getting treatment. The ride to Mount Sinai was tense. Emma held her mother's hand, whispering reassurances, while Marcus made call after call. By the time they arrived, a team was waiting with a wheelchair. Dr. Chen appeared within minutes, her expression grave as she examined Caroline. Internal bleeding, she said quietly to Marcus. Possibly from the fall. If she'd waited much longer. She didn't need to finish the sentence. The surgery took 4 hours. Marcus sat in the waiting room, Emma curled up beside him, finally asleep against his shoulder. He stared at this tiny girl who'd been brave enough to knock on a stranger's door, desperate enough to trust someone she'd only seen in a newspaper photo. When was the last time anyone had trusted him? When was the last time he'd done something that wasn't calculated, that didn't come with an expected return on investment? Dr. Chen emerged at 2 in the morning. She's stable, she'll make a full recovery, but it was close. Another hour, maybe 2. She looked at Emma, still sleeping. That little girl saved her mother's life. Something broke inside Marcus then, like ice cracking after a long winter. He thought about the foster homes, the times he'd been scared and alone, wishing someone, anyone, would care. He'd built walls so high that he'd forgotten what it felt like to be human, to connect, to matter beyond a balance sheet. Over the next few weeks, Marcus visited Caroline and Emma regularly. He learned that Caroline had been an art teacher before budget cuts eliminated her position. He discovered that Emma loved to read but had never owned a new book. He heard about their struggles, their dreams, their determination to build a better life. He also learned something about himself. Marcus established a fund to cover Caroline's medical bills and set her up with a position at Holloway Industries' corporate training program. But more than that, he started the Holloway Foundation, dedicated to helping families in crisis, covering medical emergencies, providing legal aid, offering resources that could mean the difference between catastrophe and hope. A year later, Marcus stood in his office, watching Emma and Caroline at the foundation's opening ceremony below. Emma was reading a speech about kindness and second chances, her voice clear and confident. Caroline stood beside her, healthy and glowing, tears streaming down her face. Marcus's assistant stepped into the office. "The mayor's here for your meeting, sir. Tell him I'll be down in a minute," Marcus said, unable to look away from the scene below. "I'm watching something important." His phone buzzed, a text from Emma. "Thank you for answering the door. You saved us. But I think maybe we saved you too." Marcus smiled, truly smiled, for the first time in years. That little girl had been right. She'd knocked on his door seeking help, but what she'd actually delivered was something far more valuable. A reminder that wealth meant nothing without humanity, that success rang hollow without connection, that the highest return on investment came from the simplest act of all, caring about another human being. The rain had stopped outside, and through the clearing clouds, sunlight broke across the city, turning everything golden.